What's going on, Flock? It is 12:04 Eastern in the afternoon on Wednesday, September 25th. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trosted, as always, joined alongside my co-host, Sarah Ellison. We are working our way towards, all of a sudden, week 4 of this NFL season. The Ravens and Bills will battle it out inside the bank. It's going to be an all-black out for Sunday Night Football. Really looking forward to that one. And we have a jam-packed episode for you. I'm sure you've heard that before. Marlon Humphrey. I got to think of new ways to say that we're jammed because we are every single show. And I feel like I say that every single time, but we are chocked. How about this? We are chocked full over the next hour right now with content, beginning with Marlon Humphrey's sort of response on whether or not he's got beef with Lamar Jackson. We all remember the Instagram live that has since went viral on their plane ride back from Dallas. So we'll get into that. He also talked about a pregame moment that he shared with Tom Brady, who called the game for Fox. Defensive issues against Dallas. We're going to monitor and kind of dive into the specifics of where things went wrong and maybe even call out a couple specific players that may be to blame. On the opposite side, offensive progression, perhaps towards getting to the Ravens' identity or taking another step, Sarah, towards that. We'll dive into that. This penalty differential statistic that you found yesterday is insane. Shannon Sharp talks Lamar versus Burrow. A bunch of quick hits. Shall we continue?
Well, he mostly talks Burrow, but I'm going to compare it to how he talks about Lamar.
But
yeah, then there's a ton of quick hits. I mean, is that enough there? Is that enough content to get through today? I think we're going to have our hands full, but I'm excited.
Not to mention, the Orioles clinched a spot in the postseason. So it's been a busy 24 hours or so when it comes to Baltimore sports. But let's begin with this. Marlon Humphrey, of course, his weekly Punchline podcast episode was released. I believe it was early this morning. They tease it on Tuesdays, release it on Wednesday mornings. Jack Settleman is his co-host. And in week 3 recap, that was sort of their content. He talked about this exchange right here, just in case you haven't seen it yet, with Lamar. So we'll play this, and then we'll play right afterwards Marlon's explanation.
Getting that first dub. Talk to us a little bit. You know, the flock, they got to hear from you. You know what I mean? They got to hear from you.
Got the dub.
Keep stacking.
We shouldn't even be live right now. Like, we need to get right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey, there you go, Walker Texas.
You straight have beef.
We shouldn't even be talking about it.
The quarterback. Never a good situation to be in, really. I mean, that can go bad. But as we all know, Lamar's never really, I don't think Lamar's ever really happy after a win, honestly. Like, he really, like, I don't think he'll really, Lamar Jackson, and I quote, "I'm not coming on your pod until we win a Super Bowl, and then I'll come." So, I mean, I feel like he's been very vocal about this throughout the years in the media. Winning a game ain't really, he wants to win the big one, or he ain't really going to be too happy. I mean, that's a guy that's daggum striving for excellence, and I like it. But I thought they played pretty well yesterday, but oh yeah, back to me. Yeah, I would Lamar's my guy.
What are you, Lamar's
guy? Hey, we surveys out, honestly. Surveys honestly out. We sounds like in the media ways, I'm not. It might be getting bad out here. There's a possibility of that.
I swear my guy has the biggest scatterbrain in the history of scatterbrains. And guess what? To his point, Sarah, as you compiled here, the media may feel differently, or although it's mostly just out of response to the video itself going viral. New York Post, Sporting News, Sports Illustrated all picked up the conversation and dialogue that was surrounding that 24-second clip that we shared with you that has since went viral from the plane ride back. What's your reaction?
First of all, I have to go back to the original video where he's like, "We shouldn't even be live right now." And he's like, "Yes, sir." And then dabs him up and goes to leave. And then, Lamar torches him more for not getting a pick. But my reaction is that for sure it's overblown in the national media. I think it was definitely noteworthy for sure. So, whatever, it's fine to have headlines on it. I don't think we had a headline on it originally, but we definitely covered it. Because we talked about it. It's the more defiant vocal Lamar, and he wants to hold people accountable. And he for sure was holding Marlon accountable especially on the maybe near pick. Now, to Marlon's point, he's like, listen, Lamar's never happy until he wins the Super Bowl. And so you're seeing two personalities that are very different. Like Marlon is he's got his own podcast in the middle of the season. He puts out crazy thoughts into the Twitterverse. Like he's been on our podcast and he was generous with us on draft night. Like he is a very outgoing, transparent, public guy. Lamar is the complete opposite. Like he's as private as he gets. He doesn't want to do the media. He doesn't have his own podcast. He gets on the socials once in a while. He gets on there now and then. He's kind of fun. But he's very private and he just wants to be low key. And so you just have two different personalities. And that's all I think that exchange really was. Do I think there's a beef? No, I do not. Do I think that Lamar's holding people accountable more? Absolutely, which is what we want. But I think this is just like a funny exchange, maybe slightly awkward there for a minute, where two guys just have two different personalities of reacting to a win on the airplane ride home. Outside of that, I bet listen, if Lamar Jackson can be cool with Bernard Pollard, who came at him hard a couple years ago on Twitter, and they had a legit back and forth that was beef. And then 2 days later, he's in front of the media, and Lamar's like, "Nah, we're cool. We're good." If Lamar's cool with Bernard Pollard, I promise you, he's cool with Marlon Humphrey, even though they have two different personalities.
Yeah, nothing more, nothing less. I think that's a really fair way of summarizing it. And remember, on the outside of that clip, we only played 24 seconds of it. But as you alluded to earlier, then they started kind of razzing each other about past media things that we've covered where Lamar was like, how do you not have that interception, right? And then it goes back to like their training camp back and forth.
Yeah.
They would have the fun that they would have with one another in the media and in their respective press conferences. So there is depth there. There is layers to this friendship. And I think when you have some of these national headlines that are pulling from without a familiarity of this inner team dynamic between the two of them, it can lead to some murky waters maybe within certain parts of the fan base or just nationally speaking football fans in general, wondering what's going on internally in Baltimore. You know what I mean? Like there isn't anything going on internally that we're aware of. We've seen little, parcelings of frustration through the first 3 weeks of the season. But to say that there's something groundbreaking happening, I think is just completely overblown.
No, there's no real beef. I do think it was funny though when he's like, "Lamar's my guy," and Jack's like, "But are you his guy?"
Funny.
I thought that was funny, and I think that Marlon's having fun with it. Like I feel like Marlon isn't like all these national headlines on him. It's not making him clam up. He's kind of having fun with it. I don't know. Does he hate me? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he knows that they're cool, but I like that he wouldn't speak for Lamar either. So that question is really, Lamar speaks later today. If this has national headlines, maybe a reporter will ask, but I don't know. Remember last week there were like 4 questions and then there was like a quick pause. And then the PR staff rushed him off before, a reporter could get another question. And so I'm hoping it works out today to where they can ask him, be like, Marlon says he's cool with you. How are you with Marlon? And I think it'll all get straightened out because I almost guarantee he'd be like, "Oh yeah, me and Marlon are cool."
Yeah, we can't be having him get off scot-free with just 4 questions, right? Come on, this is the reigning MVP. He's got to be there for at least 10 to field them. But so anyway, that's the latest Punchline podcast. There was one other clip as well that Marlon shared about his pregame exchange with Tom Brady, who of course he matched up with defensively when Tom was still in the league with Tampa. He may have actually played a game. They may have played against each other in both organizations, New England and Tampa, if I'm not mistaken, at least once each. But Marlon talked about a pregame exchange that he had with Tom, who was calling the game for Fox that day in Dallas.
I come inside of my, "Hey, y'all boys, Tom Brady calling our game." I mean, I don't think they really cared that much, but I might want to call games one day. So I was like, yo, Tom Brady's going on game. Like, that's cool. Then I was like, yeah, hey, we were just chopping it up, me and Tom. I was like, he said, like, I was like one of the hardest defenders to game plan against. And it was like, bro, shut up. He didn't say that. I'm like, bro, don't shoot the messenger. Like, I'm just telling y'all what they was like, bro, he was in a division with Darrelle Revis. I'm like, Darrelle Revis is Hall of Fame, but look, I'm just telling you what he told me. So, and then he was talking about me. It totally matches up. It totally matches up now.
He did say it,
No,
right?
he was showing love.
So I'm gonna keep my story. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
But hey, the people on Twitter say you can't play, but Tom Brady does. So take your pick.
Hey, that's why I'm not on Twitter no more. That's why I'm doing Tom Brady in person. And he thought we talking pregame about the game.
Okay, so what did he say Tom Brady told him?
You heard him there. He said, Tom told me pregame that I was one of the hardest to prepare for defensively. Whether or not he was dapping him up and showing him some love, buttering him up pregame remains to be seen.
Oh, we know those Patriots, how they do. Yeah.
But
no, but I mean, Brady was complimentary of him on the broadcast also. And by the way, Brady wasn't afraid to like say things like when he was fed up with the penalties, he let it be known. The week before, he was telling this is before Dallas played the Ravens. I can't remember who Dallas played. New Orleans. And on the broadcast, that one, he was like, Dak can't go back to that receiver anymore because I think the receiver didn't catch something. He's like, get him off, send him to the bench. Like, so I think that Brady's isn't afraid to speak his mind during the podcast or during the broadcast.
No, not at all. And some in the live chat are actually commenting on, did Marlon admit to that being a fake story a couple minutes after that clip that we just played? Is that?
Oh, wait, you know what?
Did he? Did he completely? Is he a pathological liar?
No, you're right, because he's right. Because a few minutes later, now that I'm thinking back, and I should have said this to you when you're cutting it up. Who's the voice who's off camera that sometimes speaks?
They have a producer, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is. But the producer was like, wait, so what did he say to you? And he's like, oh listen, we got to go back and listen. Because he was like, you mean, but I can't remember if he was saying what Brady said to him was false or what he said to Brady was false. Because later, I think he said, no, this is the part I think he said he was joking with. He goes, in my mind, I said to Brady, oh, you're not the GOAT. I think that's the part he admitted to that was fake.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, right. Because he was telling people afterwards, after that clip that we just played, that he did go up to Tom. Well, can you elaborate about your pregame conversation with Tom? And he was like, oh, yeah, I told him that he wasn't the GOAT. And then the producer doubled down. He's like, well, tell us more about that. And so maybe he admitted that.
Yeah. So you guys can correct us if you're wrong, but I think he was saying that part was a joke. I don't think this first part was a joke.
See, this is the Marlon Humphrey experience. You
have
to kind of like hang on for dear life and try and decipher when he's telling the truth and when he's not. It's a very difficult process. And if you're not listening with full focus, you can get yourself in a spin cycle. So anyway, why we wanted to bring it up was, let's say that Tom did compliment him, whether he meant it or not.
Well, he did compliment him on the broadcast. We do know that.
He did do that. We don't know about the pregame conversation, at least through Marlon's lens. And so that's just a sort of a transition into, okay, coming off a very down year for his standards, both statistically and availability-wise or lack thereof because of what he dealt with last year. How do we grade out Marlon through 3 weeks? And so I took to X yesterday, and I just asked the question because there's been a lot of dialogue around this. And I'm not sure why that there seems to be this belief within the fan base that he's having a down year so far. And then this stat up here from PFF kind of backs that up. Just he and Christian Gonzalez so far are the only corners with 15-plus targets and 0 explosive completions allowed. Both have given up just 1 touchdown. Now, when I asked that question right there, of course, it was a highly engaged tweet because this has been a hot topic in recent days. And Sarah, and I know you covered this a week or 2 ago, a lot of the response that I got was people that are still hung up on the Xavier Worthy bust that went for 6 week 1 in Kansas City.
Not his fault.
We got to remember that Kyle Hamilton came out in the days that followed that and took full accountability for that missed assignment. That was
And
not on Marlon.
And you can see it on the film too. We were already guessing before Hamilton took the blame. If you went and looked at the all 22, it was pretty clear that it was Hamilton, but you just needed that final, like making sure that was his assignment. But the film, and then Hamilton saying, he's like, it wasn't Zach Orr's fault. It wasn't Marlon's fault. It was me. It was me. I didn't do the right coverage.
Right.
So people are, you're right. Some people still might be stuck on that first game, but that was not on Marlo.
Right. So it's all to say that he actually has not been, there's been a lot of defensive problems, obviously, particularly in the fourth quarter, which we're about to discuss and do a deep dive on. Marlon's not really been one of them that warrants this type of buzz. I think the buzz is coming from people in the fan base who don't like the fact that he does an hour-long podcast once a week. And as we covered last week, it is just an hour on his off day. He's not editing. He's not traveling. He's not doing anything that is above and beyond for an in-season type of commitment. And so, anyway, I feel like that's where these sentiments have come from.
And coming off of a down year.
Sure.
But you pointed out already. Year. Yes. Now, one thing to your point about whether he should be able to do a podcast, plus I think just the way he talks online, people don't love. I think it's funny. But I just wanted to point out one thing. I am 1000% okay with him doing a podcast. However, I want to show where it could go wrong, but Marlon hasn't done it. This is where I would draw the line. I want to show you this video real quick. CJ Stroud heard an interview from one of his opponents earlier this year. Check this out.
Stop telling your secrets on Richard Sherman podcast, dude.
What you mean?
The palms look. You ain't slick, brother. You ain't getting me. You ain't getting me.
I know even last year, it's funny, the pick that you talk about, we were really in palms. So
you did that out of palms?
I promise you. Because look, hear me.
Listen, I won't let him break it all down, but he's on there on Richard Sherman's podcast bragging about how he was able to get a quarterback to bite. And he was kind of baiting him in, and he's saying he's doing it out of palms. And so CJ Stroud sees that and was one up on him now. So Marlon Humphrey can do his podcast all he wants, just don't give up secrets, which he has not done to my knowledge. So
CJ kept receipts. The guy's well studied. That's great.
Yeah, that was really good. So so let's dig into Bobby. Obviously they're the number 32 pass defense right now. So obviously fans are going to be coming down a lot on your first thought is, okay, it's got to be Marlon. He's one of the starting corners, but that's not necessarily the case. So this is a chart posted by Ryan Mink that this is the passing chart of Dak Prescott against the Cowboys. And it's not, I think it's indicative of what we've kind of seen over the first 3 weeks. The green is where the quarterback is having a ton of success. Yellow is mild success. Red is not great success. So you can see on his left-hand side, which who's usually over? Because doesn't Stevens Marlon's kind of goes back and forth. He's sometimes outside and he's sometimes a nickel. So Marlon moves a little bit. So you can't really match this up with Marlon exactly. But I can promise you Marlon is not where the green is in the middle of the field. Okay. Nope. Marlon is, if he's nickel, he's playing close to the line of scrimmage, and the outside is often where Marlon and Stevens and Nate Wiggins are. Okay. So you see a lot of yellow on the left outside, some yellow deep outside on the opposite side. You got some greens where there's behind the line of scrimmage. Whoop-de-dee-do, right? And then a green just from about 0 to 10 yards on the right-hand side. Okay, red in lots of places in the middle, near the line of scrimmage. But by far the most success, not only against the Cowboys, but this goes back to week 1 when Rashee Rice was eating up the linebackers and safeties. It's right here in the middle of the field. Okay, that is mostly Roquan Smith and Marcus Williams. Now there's other guys in there too that go in there, but that's certainly a big part of it. Okay. So middle, intermediate to deep has been a problem. And that's where Dak Prescott really tore him apart. So Kyle P. Barber posted a really cool graphic that he compared everybody's the top 5 defensive cap hits this year and compared it to their PFF grades. Okay, so I put it on a separate slide so we can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so the biggest cap hit, which is Marlon Humphrey on the defensive side. Is this the biggest? Yeah, biggest cap hit. Okay, 22.8 million. His PFF grade is 72 overall, and that comes in. He's ranked the 21st cornerback out of 106. Okay, I think he can be better for 22 million, but not bad. Not the worst person. That puts him, there's 2 to 3 corners on the field all the time. So 21st is where he's at. Can he get better? Definitely. But his run defense is 69.1, but his coverage is better at 71.7. So it's his run defense that's bringing him down a little bit. His rank in coverage, that 71.7 for coverage, that ranks 23rd. Okay. His run defense ranks 34. So Marlon certainly can get better. Not saying he can't, but not the problem. Okay. Then you look at
the sorry to interrupt. I'm looking at the current highest paid corners. So because I'm looking at that number that you have, or that Kyle had, 21st of 106.
Are you looking at cap hits specifically?
I'm looking at
filter by cap hit.
You keep going. I'll do that.
Okay. If you're on Spot Rack, you can filter by cap hit. Okay. The next highest paid player on defense is Marcus Williams. Okay. And he's at 18 million. Marcus Williams has a 36.2 grade right now, and that is number 79 out of 79.
Yeah,
that's rough. That's the last. Okay. He's been pretty rough in both run D and coverage. So his run D, he's a 50.4, which is 73 out of 79. And then for coverage, he's 41.1, which is 77 out of 79. Okay. That's no bueno.
Marlon's number 2 league-wide in terms of cap hit this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Expensive-wise. So.
And what about Marcus Williams? Can you do that for safeties, cap hits?
Only to Jair.
Oh, you know what? He's got it right here, Bobby. Says it right here. Contract ranked by position. Marlon's number 2. Marcus Williams is number 3.
Oh, duh. It's in the second column. Yeah, okay.
And Roquan Smith is his cap hit is number 1 at the position. So he's 9.8 million. Okay. His grade overall is 54, which is 61 out of 82. Roquan's better than that.
Yeah.
He's better than that. Now, his run defense, 63.1, which is 42 out of 82, which is middle of the pack. And then his PFF coverage, 53.4. That's number 55 out of 82. Okay, so these are like really high paid players, and they're not playing up to what they're being paid for sure. And even if they weren't being paid a lot, they're not playing up to their potential. Like Roquan Smith was brought in here to be a leader, and that's what he has been. And he certainly turned the defense around as soon as he came. But he's not there yet. Now you look over at the next cap hits, Nnamdi Madubuike. He's 7.1. He just got paid. So he's the 3rd highest cap hit at his position. He's 66.1 overall by PFF, which ranks 36 out of 135. So again, pretty good. He's probably getting a lot more double teams than he used to. And then Broderick Washington, who's being paid $4.5 million. He's number 71 out of 135. Now listen, PFF is not the end all be all, right? But what's nice about this is they grade their system is put on all these guys league wide. So it's more of an apples to apples comparison. And I do think it matches up with what, I was just showing here. We're having a trouble in the middle of the field. And that is Marcus and Roquan in there. So both those guys have to pick it up.
I was kind of confused that Brody got paid a year or 2 ago. They got out in front of him, gave him that early extension. And ever since, it doesn't seem as if he's an ascending player anymore. When he got paid, he felt like we were like, oh, cool. Okay, yeah, this was like somewhat of a surprise that they allocated dollars to Broderick Washington, but like this early in the game. But like, let's see what happens. Like, let's see if he continues to ascend. And you just haven't heard much from him at all. Like he's just not the game wreck. He's not showing as many signs of being, a game wrecker as he was around that time.
Right.
Here
Like
we go.
Eric DeCosta is trying to get out ahead of having to, do big contracts because he's predicting, a breakout. And in this case, that hasn't happened yet. So somebody on Twitter asked Spencer Schultz, friend of the show. He said, the streets are concerned with Roquan's play through the first 3 weeks. On TV, he looks bigger and slower and doesn't seem to, and then it kind of gets cut off, but you get the point. And Spencer says, I think the Ravens are being more conservative in coverage. So I want to move into how you fix this, okay? He says they're being conservative in coverage and want teams to have to throw over the middle of the field, over the linebackers, and under the safeties. He said, in Roquan's defense, he said, Roquan is being put in tough spots. People think it's, quote, his man more often than it's just him being first to the ball. Then Spencer says he could process more quickly, though, and I believe he will. John Harbaugh was asked specifically about coverage in the middle of the field by Kyle Goon. He says, you guys are second in yards given up to tight ends and second in passing yards given up between the hashes. Are you concerned, especially when you look at that spot in your defense that has some of your best players? Are you concerned about what's going on in the middle of the field right now? So we just set that up perfectly, right? Middle of the field, and it's some of his best players, Roquan and Marcus Williams. Harbaugh says, absolutely. So he's absolutely concerned. He said the easiest place to complete passes is the middle of the field. You have to get between the quarterback and the football, and we're not doing a good job of that. It has to stop. We have to put a stop to it. That was pretty strong language for John.
Yeah, I'm glad it's great. Like, obviously he's acknowledging that, but through 3 weeks, that's got to stop. I mean, but Josh Allen and the Bills are going to pick you apart if you leave that part of the field vulnerable, because he does everything else just as good, whether it's vertically outside the numbers, deep ball game. The guy's surgical. So if you start to leave open those areas and allow the Rashee Rices of the world and allow tight ends like they have the past couple of weeks, whether it was Vegas or Dallas, to cash in, it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a long night on your home turf if you don't ensure and if you get into a shootout with the Bills, I'm not feeling great about the Ravens' chances.
No, absolutely not. And I will say this. If I had to compare, right, my confidence level in fixing it between, say, like a Daniel Falele and a Patrick McCary versus a Roquan Smith and a Marcus Williams, I have much greater hope that those two, with their brand new defensive coordinator, will figure it out.
Sure.
Right?
That feels better than the uphill battle they have.
Right. Now they got to figure it out. You're being paid, so you better figure it out. But I have more confidence that they will. One other thing I wanted to say about the fourth quarter and coverage there, because we got a question about this the other day. And I said, somebody in the super chat said, what do they have to do to fix the fourth quarter? And I said, I feel like they just need to do what they've been doing the first three. And Harbaugh said something similar. They asked him about fourth quarter. He said that he feels like they shouldn't be playing not to give up the big play all the time. Just play the defense the way it's been played. We have really good players back there, and I'd like to see them play that way from a confident standpoint, the way we did the rest of the game. We were forcing a lot of tight throws in the first half, play the same way in the third quarter, and then play even more that way in the fourth quarter and make them earn it. I do think sometimes maybe it's weighing on their brains a little bit about not letting that happen, and then it happens. We're capable of it. We just have to get it done. I mean, it's true. How many times was it like in the first and second quarter, like Dak would throw a pass and it was just like there was nowhere to go. There was such a tight window, whether it was Kyle Hamilton there or a few other guys. Like it just seemed like there were so many tight windows. And then all of a sudden you're like playing not to let up the big play. Yeah. And so they have these easy catches and it starts to snowball. So you just got to keep playing it the way you did the first three quarters.
That's what I was just thinking too. Don't allow the snowball to get downhill. Mm-hmm. We all know what happens when a little piece of snow gets downhill. It starts to add layers to it. And we saw that happen on Sunday. And it all began with what? The missed field goal, right? And that snowball just started rolling downhill. And the Ravens couldn't overcome just how much of an avalanche that snowball became. And well, I guess they were able to overcome it on Sunday in Dallas, but they weren't able to the week prior. And you probably won't be able to if you allow that to happen against the Bills team. So Let's talk about another defensive player who there's been some conversation surrounding maybe his health, his play, his performance, how much he's asked to do on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday, and that is Kyle Hamilton. And all 22 films tweeted out recently that he had a game high 12 tackles and a quarterback hit in that win in Dallas, despite 2 poor coverage snaps against Hunter. How do you pronounce this guy's last name? I should have looked into it. Hunter Lupke. It was the most impactful performance he's put up thus far in 2024. And you found a great breakdown put forth by Brian Baldinger of NFL Network that sort of backs up what all 22 was getting at here.
Some days I watch the Ravens defense just to see where Kyle Hamilton is going to line up, what he's going to do. Like when he comes blitzing off the edge here and chases down Dak and forces that errant throw. Or if he's lined up over the tight end and he's got Ferguson man-to-man right here. And you watch him on this play and he never really takes his eyes off him. Good job right here, staying with him, forcing him into the middle of the field, kind of grabbing that little jersey right there. Marcus Williams almost gets the interception, all right? Like every single play, it seems like it's something. Like here he is, coming off this edge right here on a full chase and taking down Zeke for no gain, all right? Like here he is. To watch, like Roquan's going to get him lined up, I think. Like, how do you figure it out? Half-field safety. Nope, not yet. Come on up. Like you just watch him move around. Like you don't know where he's going to be. Oh, now he's got the back. All right, you don't know until the ball snaps sometimes. And then his assignment is usually perfect. All right? You watch this right here, and you go, here he is in the half field. Like, watch him dissect this reverse right here to Turpin. Like, look at this angle in the hit.
Oof.
Down goes Turpin.
That's tremendous. By the way, Hunter Lipke. Lipke is the pronunciation. But is there anybody that's doing more on this defense than Kyle any given play?
Yeah, so in this game, Kyle was lights out. The first 2 games, I didn't feel like Kyle was like the Kyle we had seen last year, and perhaps injuries had played a part in it. He's just had, pesky things. I know he had the knee in training camp, and then I think during the season he was listed with the back. And so it sounds like, I think 2 things might be happening that he kind of came alive in week 3. Maybe he was feeling better, but I also feel like Zach Orr was better at putting him in all those different places. So that one clip that he showed that we were laughing at pre-snap, I mean, he lined up in like 5 different places.
Yeah.
As a quarterback,
the communication that he was executing. Like
between him and Roquan, it was like, where is this guy? Like, if I'm a quarterback, how do I know where this guy's going to like end up?
Yeah.
It was just absolutely hilarious to watch that pre-snap. And then post-snap, we saw it. Like, how many times did he like chase down a running back or get to the quarterback or stick with the tight end or just like lay the smack, just smack that dude down. He could have gotten flagged because he pulled off the helmet, which you're not allowed to do. But he was pretty fired up after that hit. So I'm glad we're here with Kyle Hamilton. I think that'll help as the Ravens try to overcome their woes. But between John and Zach Orr and Roquan and Marcus Williams, it's what our boss said. You got to put a stop to that middle of the field, because in what you said about Josh Allen, he can do so much. Don't give him freebies in the middle of the field.
He's slippery in the pocket. He's obviously mobile, but he's surgical in the pocket as well. And so I'm just the guy spread it out to 10 different pass catchers on Monday night. So you better believe they're coming in high flying, and they're coming in pissed off this year too, because of, I think, a lot of the narratives that have been labeled with Josh and Stephon Diggs, who's no longer there, and all those things that we'll dig deeper into throughout the week. Another thing that Kyle Barber's done well here is sort of a then and now exercise, looking at specific positions. And when I say then and now, I'm talking about past and present Ravens. And so he's looked at a couple different matchups. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, looking at the last year's departures versus this year's replacements. And he uses more PFF rankings to do so. And so he's looking at Eddie Jackson versus Geno Stone, Trenton Simpson versus PQ, Adafe versus Jadeveon Clowney, Voorhees versus Simpson, Fa'alele versus Zeitler, and McCary versus Moses. By the way, Moses just went down for the next couple of games after an injury. I just saw that while we were live, actually, that he's going to miss the next couple for the Jets. But as you see here, he's got at least, this is week 3. This is not a culmination of 3 weeks. This is the week 3. Or I'm sorry, is this?
I think it is a culmination.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. I think he's been tracking it each week.
Okay. Yeah. Well, basically, he breaks it up into overall PFF grades versus PFF run defense versus PFF coverage, and then they had the cap hit is in there as well. And basically, through 3 weeks, Eddie and Geno are very comparable.
By the way, did you see Geno's hit?
I did.
On that Bengals game on Monday night. Woo!
I did, and then he got up and was talking all of his junk afterwards.
Yeah,
but
okay, Geno.
But he and his Bengals are staring at an awfully big hole at 0-3 right now.
Yeah.
So Eddie.
Anyway, he and Eddie are equal, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Trenton has been an upgrade over PQ. Adafe has been a considerable upgrade over Jadeveon.
Okay, Adafe.
Voorhees has been an upgrade over Simpson. I'm sorry. Voorhees has been a downgrade so far through 3 weeks over Simpson. Below Simpson, I should say. Fa'alele obviously has been a downgrade under Kevin Zeitler. And McCary has been an upgrade over Moses through 3 weeks. Anything that you want to sink your teeth into specifically here?
Just to your point, the Adafe upgrade is like by a lot. It's crazy. That surprises me a little bit. It's a lot. And that's how Jadeveon's playing this year, not versus what Jadeveon did last year.
Exactly.
It's what these guys are both doing this year. So
which has been disastrous in Carolina.
Right. But Jadeveon, he needed to chase the money.
He chose to, right?
And that's his choice. Some guys just want to go out and make as much as they possibly can, and that's completely fine. The Voorhees downgrade versus Simpson is the smallest downgrade on the chart. And like the Kevin Zeitler downgrade, I mean, it is by 18. Okay, it's pretty big.
Oh yeah.
And McCary downgrade is pretty big, at 14. So anyway, I'm just personally surprised at how big OE is over Clowney, but Clowney Carolina's a mess.
Of course, this is subject to change. 3 weeks in, we'll follow it. I'm sure Kyle's going to continue to track it and follow it throughout the year. So good stuff there. Good follow as well when it comes to Ravens beat writing. So you want to talk about tight end usage?
Well, I want to talk about, on offense and kind of what we saw. So obviously we saw a breakout with the Lamar Henry duo. Okay. When you are running that well, you just keep going and you put in heavy personnel packages. And so we've been asked if Mark Andrews is injured and if that's affecting his play and his snap count and all of that. I don't think so. He's not on the injury report. Is he 100% from before the injury? He also had the car accident. I can't say that for sure. But I think a more plausible answer, especially when it comes to against the game against the Cowboys, you'll see here the tight end offensive snaps. Isaiah Likely had 39, which is 62%. Charlie Kohler had 26 snaps, which is 41%. And then Mark Andrews is only at 21, which is 33%. Meanwhile, Pat Ricard, his snaps are through the roof at 32, which is almost as much as his combined snaps for the first 2 weeks. Okay. And so what the reason for all of this is because of what was happening in the run game. Dallas couldn't stop him, so they were keeping in their heavy personnel. Mark Andrews, though, when he was out there, let me tell you, John Harbaugh pointed it out. He had like 3 or 4 pancakes when he was blocking.
Yeah.
But when you're doing heavy personnel and you're focused on running, where Mark Andrews is more of your passing tight end, he's just not going to be out there as much. So I think the explanation seems more about what they did versus Dallas than the fact that he might be injured. So what was the success they had when they were doing that? So Jonas Schaefer put together, he said that the Ravens lined up in 22 personnel, which is 2 backs and 2 tight ends and 1 wide receiver, just 1 wide receiver. They lined up in that basically 20% of the time. Okay. About a fifth of the time. So how are they doing it? They didn't pass one time, by the way, out of this 22 personnel, but the results were stellar. 7.5 yards per play. Hello. 53.8% success rate and a 0.20 EPA per play. That's all great results. Okay, so what does this mean then for like Mark Andrews or some of these wide receivers going forward? I thought Chris Sims, Bobby, on PFT Live explained how huge this was for the Ravens to have this breakthrough and what it will mean going forward, maybe 2 or 3 weeks down the line.
And that was awesome by Baltimore on that side of the ball. And that's where I look at them and go, continue to do that. All the sexy pass game stuff and justifying Lamar's contract and Todd Monken being the OC, that's all going to look awesome if you continue to run the ball like this. You do this, you're going to get looks on first and second down in a few weeks where you're like, Lamar Jackson's going to go, are they seriously playing like this? They're playing this coverage right now with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and all this stuff? Holy crap. A good team, all good teams we talk about ever, they always have one thing that they do great, right? There's one thing that we're great at this, and we feel really good in big moments to rely on that greatness, or you have to go to such an extent to stop that thing we're great that you're now going to have other areas or holes in your defense. And that to me was my point in getting them to be great at something. And hopefully then they can find the blend of, yeah, I'm not saying they need to run the ball, 3 out of every 4 times. Maybe they can be a little bit more balanced as we go here because teams will play more run defense and then they will be able to throw.
Yeah, so you see where he's going with that, Bobby? It's like,
Absolutely.
He's saying, great. I say find your superpower and make that superpower so predictable that you know that they're going to sell out to stop it. And so if you can make people fear, which is the whole reason of getting Derrick Henry and paying him in the offseason, if you can get people to fear this Henry-Lamar duo, then so much is going to open up in the passing game for the tight ends and Zay and Bateman and everything else. And so I think that there almost needs to be like this patience process. The only thing I'm scared of is can the offensive line keep it up? Because to me, and I'll get to that in a minute, I just don't know that they can do that again versus somebody that's not this Dallas interior defensive line. But if they can continue to put fear in their opponents' minds of Lamar and Derrick, everything is going to unfold. And I mean everything. There's going to be easy passes for Lamar. It's going to be Bateman and Zay and Mark and Isaiah because people are going to sell on it. So keep doing it for a couple more weeks. Just keep doing it and make defenses sell out. And I think that's the progression that they're building towards on the offensive side. But they found their superpower. Don't get me like Lamar can be great with Likely. Lamar can be great with Mark Andrews. Lamar can be great with Zay. But it's a superpower with the Hall of Famer at running back. And so play into that superpower, and all the other great connections he can have will be even better.
Well, you mentioned the offensive line, and that brings us to an interesting, perhaps inflated statistic that started making its way through the Twitter sphere yesterday, and that comes from the 33rd team. I feel like there should be like a cap on this in terms of like
little asterisks.
Yeah, you could be like, or meaning like it's got to be capped out in terms of like certain snaps maybe, or the amount
like a
of,
minimum of say 20 passes.
Yeah, and I will tell you why here. The 33rd team put together its lowest pressure rates allowed by offensive lines through week 3 league-wide. And the Ravens are atop the list at 23.1%. But as Spencer acutely pointed out here, the Ravens called, just on Sunday we're speaking to here, the Ravens called 17 pass plays in Dallas. 6 were without play action or a screen. They gave up pressures on 3 of them. And he says when you remove the play action and screens, they're worse. They're also having to use more blockers to hold up, which limits stress on coverage. So in other words, this one is a little bit skewed.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. And not only did they not throw a lot, but when they did, like they were moving the pocket. So think of like that Charlie Kolar long catch and run. Like that was that was off of a bootleg where everybody was moving one way and then Lamar goes the other and he's running outside the pocket, And so, and like he said, only 6 plays Only 6 passes were without a play action or a screen. Only 6.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're asking for a lot there, which, to me is actually like, you got to give props to Todd Monken for that, right? Because it's like, let's put these guys that aren't playing well on the offensive line in a position where they can succeed more. So in a way, I felt like the play calling and Lamar obviously being able to move the pocket and the way he can do things helped them. But like I said, I want to see it against both the Bills and the Bengals for me to truly have confidence, because I agree with Spencer. Fool's gold for now.
Yeah, this is hiding some deficiencies that we've all watched unfold through the first 3 weeks. And by the way, you mentioned Charlie Kohler. I gotta show this before we continue. He's funny. Charlie's funny. He puts up this Instagram post last night of Victory Tuesday, I guess, and he was one of the 4 captains, as you see here, with Matabike, Linderbaum, and Stevens. But if you go through the slides, okay, there he is up in the air with Derek. It's a pretty cool shot right there with Nelly looking on, right? These guys are airborne. Then it just goes to him probably running down the sideline in that opening drive.
Yeah.
But then remember earlier this week when I asked, hey, who was that body that was flying through the air on Lamar's keeper to finish the game out? Remember when and he pulls it from Zay?
It was Charlie.
And guess who it was? Here he is, 88. Look at him.
What's funny is if you see the video, there's an end zone video that's on the opposite side. And that's probably why you're wondering who was the body, right? It was probably from that angle where you can see Lamar heading towards you from that camera angle. And then all of a sudden, like you said, a body comes out and Lamar has to juke his own, like this purple body. Charlie got thrown. I don't know who threw him.
Look at him.
But he got thrown.
Who was that body? Lamar saying, hey, you funny as F for that last one. P. Rick says air Chuck. Jordan Stout says gold. Isaiah says, way to put your body on the line.
So did he not get thrown or did he jump?
Look at Derek. King Henry says, Charlie boy. I don't know. I don't know. He must have gotten tossed.
I haven't seen an angle yet that showed me how he got airborne.
Jesse says, bring back the braids, Charlie. I found that to be funny. He's got a good sense of humor.
He's very funny. Should we do a couple super chats before we transition?
Yes. Thank you. Jeremiah, thank you. Thank you all for the super chat featured donation. Jeremiah says, I, for one, prefer to have Lamar be serious and dialed in, chasing for perfection and wanting the Super Bowl win. Can hope that mentality rubs on to other players.
He's talking about the IG Live part. Yeah.
For sure. And TY says it's going to take until week 6 as a minimum for this team to hit their stride. Potentially, but if you can be around 500 or better by week 6, that's they can have that grace period. Yeah, that grace period won't kill them. So thank you both. Let's get our patrons in here too before we continue the conversation. Thank you for all the support that you give us, and this is your monthly shout out, Ralph and Nick. You guys are 2 of our newest patrons. Matter of fact, you just signed up within the last month or so. You're a part of the Vault Patreon community, and you really help us out on the back end. So thanks for your generosity. Welcome to the family. And if you guys are interested in doing the same, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. We have a link that's directly in the show notes below.
One more super chat in while we're doing it. Tank says, once Charlie gets those cornrows back, it's up for the league.
Maybe, just maybe.
I love it.
All right.
Okay.
Shall we get to a rough showing or a rough lack of discipline thus far? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I'm referring to. And you found it, so go right ahead.
All right. So Joseph, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. It's cut off. Is it Hefner? But at Joseph H. Hefe. Okay. He is actually a Chiefs guy, and he's put together and compiles, I think he does it weekly, a graphic that he calls Blessed by the Refs. Okay. So I'm imagining he put this together because the Chiefs are constantly accused of being blessed by the refs, right?
It's a nice play on words, by the way, that he does there.
Great play on words. Great play on words. But obviously the graphic implies that the refs are either for you or against you. Okay. and which is what everybody claims that the Chiefs are doing. So anyway, he obviously makes a note about where the Chiefs are, and the Falcons, I guess, last week were a +10 in net penalty differential. So, and the Chiefs overcame that. So he's like, look, it's not what you guys think. So he makes a point that last week against the Cowboys had a +8 differential against the Ravens. So I go a little bit deeper and I post his graphic. And because I noticed the Ravens are dead last at number 32 in what he calls blessed by the refs. Okay. Which essentially is saying they're number 32 in the net differential in both the number of penalties, because they're -16 through 3 weeks. And Bobby, minus 174 penalty yards.
Yeesh.
That is a ton. 174 differential.
Do we think it's in any way skewed? Not having looked at this yet in detail, do we think it's in any way skewed from week 1 and then being the guinea pigs?
I would have to go back and see where we ranked week 1, but I'm sure that plays into it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So then I make this point, which really got people going, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm right. Okay. So I said this differential being number 32, without a doubt, plays into the Ravens 1-2 record. Without a doubt. Now, notice what I did not say here is that the refs are the reason why the Ravens are 1-2. I'm saying this net negative penalty differential is. For certain, it is impacted by both. It is impacted by some undisciplined play that the Ravens need to clean up. But if we're being honest, it also has to do with undisciplined flag throwing. Okay? And the two latest has been the Phantom Odafe Owe roughing the passer penalty that kept the Cowboys going on their drive to try to come back in the fourth quarter. There was this safety that should have been called and stole 2 points and the possession from the Ravens. I'm sure they got possession soon anyway, but you lose 2 points, and 2 points is a big deal in a one-possession game by the end. There were a few from the Raiders. I mean, we can go back, okay? So here's why I say without a doubt, the penalties, which is both the refs and the Ravens' fault, okay? We put up this earlier this week, but I want to drive it home again because I don't think it's quite hitting home. Not only are they number 32 in the penalty differential, but by EPA, according to Deontay Lee, by EPA, the Ravens have taken a touchdown off the board for themselves. So that's 7 points. I'm going to add that Justin Tucker kicks the field goal. So you're removing 7 points from you. Then he says by EPA, and they've given their opponents 1 touchdown defensively. Bobby, that's a 14-point swing.
And they've lost multiple one-possession games.
And I'll give you the exact number of points. All 3 games by total have been decided by 13 points.
Yep.
13 points, and we're talking about EPA. The penalties have taken 14 points away from the Ravens. Absolutely, the penalties are a factor. Not the only factor, but a significant factor in their record. When you have this many one-possession contests, and by EPA, you've lost 14 points, it for sure has an impact. And so all the Ravens can do is clean up what they can clean up, but then you can't let a bad call change the way you play. You got to play it the way it's supposed to be played. So I stand by that statement. A lot of people who don't like the Ravens think that I'm blaming it on the refs, which I'm not doing. Then the people who agree with Lamar, for example, who said that they're cheating us, they do think it's on the refs. I think it's a mix. Either way, it's got to get fixed because the Ravens, it's got to get fixed for the Ravens to turn around their record and get back above 500.
Compelling breakdown. Shall we get to some quick hits?
Yep.
So Donovan Mitchell.
Hold on before you hold. Okay. I want to get to Shannon Sharp first. I guess that's before quick hits. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
How much time do we have here? Oh, by the way, Thank you for the super chat. Nikita Ross, the officiating has been no doubt awful, but the timing of the calls by the refs has put us in the gutter each time. The timing for sure hurt on Sunday. Okay, real quick. Shannon Sharpe, we discussed yesterday, Bobby, Joe Burrow's play. And we brought up
Chris Canty ripping him.
Chris Canty ripping him. So Shannon Sharpe did something similar, but I personally was comparing this to how he talks about Lamar. Okay, so here's what he had to say on First Take.
So did Joe Burrow play well last night?
He played well, not well enough to win.
Oh my!
Those field goals.
It's 3.
Let me ask you a question. When Tom Brady, look at this. Hold on. Hold on. When you realize you can learn, like I said, the thing that I love most about Tom is that he realized early in the game the type of game that was going to be needed for him. Saturday, he saw his defense couldn't stop him. So now he has to find a way to get the ball in the end zone because you're going to be down. Think about it. They were down one time 13.
Okay.
Jeff, hold on. Jeff, please. Jeff, I'm going to be honest, man. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to live in a world where a quarterback throw for 330 and 3 touchdowns with no turnovers. And we don't say he did enough to win a football game. I don't want to live in that world in the NFL. I do. Shay, what? You live in a world where they make $55 million. Why do they make so much and so much isn't expected of them? When Pat Mahomes lost to the Detroit Lions the first week of the season last year, he was making $50 million. He played well enough to win.
Right.
He didn't play well.
I think there's a difference between the expectations. I can say that I think Josh Allen played well enough against some of those Chiefs teams when they lost to win the game.
I got a question.
And the coach made errors and the defense didn't do the right thing. I think you can still look at a player that plays well enough to win.
Please don't fall.
I got a question.
Please don't fall.
I got a question. I had pulled it up on my phone.
You're not petite. Could you please sit in your chair? You're
Don't
making me
emulate
nervous.
doggy swagoo. Don't emulate doggy swagoo. What's the matter with the chair?
I got a question.
Don't do it.
I got a question for Shay. Since I want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
He said Joe Burrow didn't play well enough. I'm going to go back to the previous week. No, I didn't say. No, he didn't play well enough to win because he kicked 2 field goals and he needed touchdown. Well enough to win. I want to ask you this. 18 for 25, 151, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Is that playing well enough to win? No, he won. No, I'm asking you. Hey, Swag.
All right, I'm gonna pause it because I think the point I want to make has been made. First of all, can I get your reaction to Marcus Spears? Because that was hilarious.
He's pure comedy on there. I think he's hilarious. I actually agree with Shay here, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
I'm with Shannon here. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you want to know why? If we're kind of using this as a way of talking about Lamar and the way that he's been covered, then that's how it goes. That's the Lamar treatment right there. And so Shannon's actually being balanced in the sense of
he's being consistent.
Coverage. Yes.
Listen, I agree with you, but I also disagree with you. I agree with you that he's being consistent. Not everybody's consistent. We've had the sound bites where Joe Burrow gets a million excuses. Shannon Sharpe isn't giving the excuses. And I think it's time for Joe Burrow to stop getting the excuses for sure on that front. I also agree with you that he's being consistent. He's saying, look, my expectation is because you're getting paid $55 million or Lamar's getting paid or Lamar has 2 MVPs. Like he's basically saying, my expectation is for you to win the game, no matter what happens elsewhere. Unless you win, Shannon Sharpe is going to pin it on the quarterback. So I agree with you that he's being consistent. Where I disagree with you is that I don't think he's right. It's only true up to a certain point, Bobby. Listen, Shannon Sharpe will forget more about football than I will ever know. So let's make that clear. If he wanted to, he could have very sophisticated football analysis if he wanted to take the time and do it. What is the point of even having these shows and watching the games if all we do is, okay, well, the quarterback is paid this much. They lost. I don't need to see anything else. It's the quarterback's fault. Which is what he does to Lamar. Lamar is a 2-time MVP. He gets paid the most. Doesn't matter if Zay Flowers fumbles the ball, and I'm not saying that Lamar didn't have his downs also. Doesn't matter that Lamar and Henry went off and that they barely got the ball in the fourth quarter with the onside kick and the defense giving up 19 points. Like, none of that matters. None of that context matters. It doesn't matter that Daniel Faalele can't block. Doesn't matter. He should have been able to elude Crosby anyway. Doesn't matter that coaching could get conservative, which has been the critique this week. None of that matters. Context doesn't matter. He's 2-time MVP. He's paid the most. If you lose, it's Lamar's fault. That's elementary analysis. And he's better than that. Because I know he knows football better than us. And to pretend nothing else matters, I disagree with that. I disagree. I'm glad people are done giving Joe Burrow excuses. I agree with that. But I do not agree. Now I know. Now we know going forward. Shannon Sharp's analysis is easy as pie. If you lose and your quarterback's paid, then it's the quarterback's fault. Nothing else matters. So why even watch?
Well, at least he's consistent. And just to be clear, context always matters. Obviously, we know that. Joe Burrow had his opportunities down the stretch. The statistics were through the roof, and it was a clean game. No turnovers, no punts on either side, which was insane. Mm-hmm. But Joe Burrow did have his opportunities down the stretch, and while
say that, then he should give that analysis rather than saying like, "Hey, Joe Burrow had a great game, but not as good as Jaden Daniels." And so Daniels made that throw deep. Daniels made the fourth down conversions. Daniels made the third down conversions. And Joe Burrow played great, but he couldn't outplay Daniels, and he had his opportunity. Say that.
Yeah.
Don't say you're $55 million, so it's your fault. He can do that, but he doesn't do it.
It's macro on First Take, not micro for sure. That's how they do it. That's sports. That's unfortunately the sports talk debate culture that we're living in. You wanted to set that up. You wanted to play that before we got to the Lamar stuff.
Well, just quick hits now. It wasn't really related, but yeah, I just wanted to give that more than quick hit treatment because I had words to say, obviously.
You did. Donovan Mitchell, NBA star who played at Louisville, talked about his college days with Lamar, and we have a clip that goes along with it.
He wasn't even a starting quarterback at Louisville. I forgot the guy's name. It was Kyle something from Louisville. And I never forget it. He gets hurt, throws an interception, and the next thing you know, Mark come in. He takes his spot his sophomore year. I want to say it was that year he won the Heisman. Like that. Like he doing shit. Like he jumping over people. He doing I'm like, yo. Like games at 1 o'clock, he got the basketball team up at 6 a.m. tailgate with the students because we like, it's going to be a show. Like, we was having dunk contests my freshman year in the gym. Me, Lamar, some of the guys on the team, Louisville's team and the football team. And he was out here windmilling, throwing it off the wall, like crazy. But then I always say he left school now, so it's irrelevant. But like my first year, we was at every class. We was every class, always in class. Next thing you know, every assignment for him was off online. Just like that. Just like that.
Yeah, that must have been insane to be there at that time. It makes me think of like some of the bigger schools that had like these crossover athletes there all at the same time. Like Florida comes to mind. Like Tim Tebow was there. Crazy enough, like late Aaron Hernandez was there at the same time. Billy Horschel played golf. They had like all these big schools. There's always a decent chance that you got future professional athletes in just about every single program that you've got going there. More quick hits. Lamar needs just 597 rushing yards to break Mike Vick's record for the most ever by a quarterback. Probably should hit that this year, you would think.
Yeah. The way
he's going.
The way things are going with him and Henry. Yeah.
And he does so in year 7 potentially. That'd be pretty darn impressive.
And I'm going to celebrate it. And there's going to be people that are ashamed of it because other people are going to be like, yeah, your quarterback's a running back. Well, my quote unquote running back is better than your quarterback. So what does that say about your quarterback? So I did not realize this. Justin Tucker, with people who have a minimum of 2 attempts, at least the graphic says, has the worst field goal percentage in the NFL this year. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. So I went on ESPN, Bobby. You know how you can filter it by either the greatest to the least or the least to the greatest. I couldn't do the greatest to the least because Justin Tucker was like a page or two down. I had to hit the next page. So he's at a 62.5%, which is the worst. There's one other person, Matt Gay, who I guess just had 2. So maybe this graphic is a little bit wrong. Maybe a minimum of 3 attempts. So with a minimum of 3 attempts, Justin Tucker has the worst field goal percentage so far this year.
Interesting. Yannick Ngakoue, officially a part of the Ravens practice squad. Ravens announced that yesterday. So see if he ends up being an elevation at some point here, coming back from last year's fractured ankle in Chicago. And, of course, a welcome back graphic accordingly here for Yannick, who was with the team part of 2020, acquired prior to the deadline, played his college football at Maryland. And we covered this earlier in the week. So we'll just wait to see when that elevation, if that elevation happens from the practice squad. Adafe Owe, Gianna Hahn covered that he shared some good news about his fine for unnecessary roughness. It has been rescinded, $20,000. This was a week 1 against Kansas City. He'd argued it was a routine tackle in the box. He led with his shoulder. The height difference made it look worse. There was no flag and no risk to the carrier. Adafe's found himself in some hot water this year when it comes to
this one he didn't get flagged, but like $20K, that's crazy. So I'm glad that he won that. Is there any way we can get the roughing the passer that was called in Dallas reversed? Can we go replay the game from that point on?
Can we go rewind time for that? Despite a 1-2 start, the Ravens are the betting favorite to win the AFC North at plus 130, according to ESPN Bet, tweeted out by Jamison Hensley. The projections to win the division from ESPN Analytics, though, look a little bit different, with Pittsburgh at 53.3%, unbeaten at 3-0. The Ravens at 27.5%, Cincy 13.6%, and Cleveland 5.6%. So if you're a numbers guy or gal, there you go. You can weigh in.
I obviously there's a lot of Steelers fans where I live, although there's lots of all AFC North fans where I live. But my co-coach in basketball, once the season starts, he's a big Steelers fan. And he knows, believe me, they know in Pittsburgh that they better keep building up this undefeated record because it's going to get hard down the stretch after their bye. Commanders, Ravens, Browns, Bengals. So 3, and then Browns again. So 4 AFC North games in a row following the Commanders. Then Philly, Ravens again, then the Chiefs. And unless the Chiefs already have everything locked up, that's week 17, then they have the Bengals again. So they know out here, they know that they better keep building this up because it is not going to be easy down the stretch.
Pad it up as much as possible. Ravens coming up, blackout, Sunday night. Bills in town, M&T Bank Stadium, 8:20 kickoff, Sunday Night Football. I'll be out at the BMore Around Town tailgate, as always, doing the pregame show right down the road, 801 West Austin Street, if you guys want to pop by. But yeah, Roquan on the screen. Darkness Falls is the graphic. It's always probably one of the game, if not the game of the year, the blackout at the bank. So if you guys can make it, would highly recommend you doing so.
Huge.
And with that, yeah, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a massive, massive one. And by the way, do not blitz Josh Allen. PFF just put up his season statistics so far when blitzed. Oh, Lord. He's 92.7 overall PFF grade. That's first. He's 19 of 25 as a passer. Over 290 yards, 6 touchdowns, no sacks taken. Ooh, boy. If you're going to
They really didn't blitz. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they really blitzed Patrick Mahomes. Like they went mostly with like a four-man front trying to get the job done.
They've been barely blitzing at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's Next Gen Stats has a blitz rate for Zach Orr through 3 games of 22.7%. That's bottom 10 of the league. So anyway, Tila just gave us a super chat.
Oh, thank you, Tila.
What's up, Tila? Listen, I don't care if they show up in a crop top. Just get it done, fellas. Blackout, crop top. She doesn't care. Love it.
Neither do I.
It's always one of the games of the year. And you know how the bank does with in terms of hyping up a primetime game. Like they pull out all the tricks. I'm sure Ray will be there I'm sure they'll do all kinds of different. We'll probably get a PR release on it if we haven't already. It'll be coming out
it
soon
usually
here
comes
shortly.
in later in the week. But this, you know how like Daniels just put himself on the map because of that Monday night game? This can be a narrative changing, momentum, not just narrative though, momentum changing, all of that. I mean, if the Ravens are able to pull this off, because Josh Allen is, off to this red hot start, he's right now the MVP favorite, and it's only through week 3, but he's the hot guy right now. He's who everybody's talking about. You can pull this off. It can completely change the Ravens season. Completely.
Definitely. This is
So I'm with Tila. Just get it done.
This is a measuring stick game. Bills are the best team in the league through 3 weeks, as far as I'm concerned. And this should be a 2024 measuring stick game for the Ravens. The new look Ravens. We know who they were last year, but this is a completely different year. And opportunity to, to your point, kind of send a message for, hey, we're still here. Because I think there's some questions around the league in terms of whether or not the Ravens are still here.
Yep.
Well, like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of when we're dropping our live content. Sarah and I will be back in 23 hours, about 23 hours from now, just under it. Luke thinks I'm a secret Bills fan, by the way.
Oh, really?
I've been dapping him up throughout.
Are you? Are you like
fan.
You did grow up in New York? Are you a Bills? No, you were Giants, right? Or Philly? Who were you?
I grew up a G-Man. Yeah, I grew up a Giants fan. But then, as you all know by now, I stripped my loyalty when I got into broadcasting. How about that? But no, I'm just saying, look, if you've watched any Bills football this year, you know they're a problem.
Yeah.
And I think they're better and more stable without Stephon there.
More people are like, yeah, definitely a Bills fan.
Of course.
No, this is the world we live. This is the garbage goat kind of talk. It's like you give a compliment to another team and suddenly you're their fan.
I'm willing to live in that world.
You know what I also think? I think the word objective, people mistake the word objective with being negative all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You ever notice that?
Absolutely.
Like objective means I'm negative. No, objective also means that you can give props when like it's warranted,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
now
funny.
Everybody's have their theories on my
They said definitely not a Ravens fan. Well, we already know that.
Chef Trez says closet Panthers fan. Jets. Ian says I'm a Jags fan. Or no, Rainer says I'm a Jets fan. You guys are hilarious. All right. Well, hey, coming up on Friday, we're going to have Chris Brown on the show, who is not the rapper, dancer, Hollywood guy. I'm talking about Chris Brown from the Bills. He's the play-by-play broadcaster for the Buffalo Bills radio team. And so we're going right to the source to try and get a good idea of what the Ravens are going to be dealing with. So join us then, 12:30 Eastern on Friday. We'll, of course, have a stream tomorrow, and we'll have a lot to discuss because press conferences are coming up in a little over an hour from right now. So we'll catch up with you then. Thanks to all of you for dropping by. Thanks to you, partner, and we'll catch up with you guys on Thursday for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. As always, thanks for joining us inside the vault.